There are many ways to start a TV show. A lot of people tend to underestimate the power of the initial episode and the initial few seconds of that episode because they believe that the strength of the rest of the show will be able to carry its own weight. And whilst this does ring true, the first few seconds are what viewers initially go off when going into something completely blind. A good example of this would be in a YouTube video, like how you've continued to watch this video because I've not mentioned the exact thing I'm going to be talking about yet, even though it's in the title of the video. Many shows do this very differently, but every good intro should include the things that I like to call the 3 S's. A good show will have one of these, but the show I'm going to be talking about today, Peaky Blinders, has all 3. So the 3 S's are as follows: substance, subversion, and suspense. Within the first few minutes of this first episode, we are introduced to all 3 of this. The first, suspense. In the very beginning of the episode, and I mean the very first scene, you see a Chinese man running to try and find a girl. He's talking about somebody else in the third person, talking about somebody powerful, somebody who would kill them. This, straight away, shows not only what the show's going to be like, but what kind of character the main character is, in a suspenseful and ingenious manner. Instead of wasting the audience's time trying to provide exposition scenes later on in the show, they instead provide all the exposition you're going to need about a character in a few simple lines. Meanwhile, we get scenes of a man riding a horse. We are unaware of who this man is, but we later find out that that is Thomas Shelby, the main character of the show. Which brings me on to my second point. Subverting expectation is something that has been done numerous times in TV and cinema to mixed levels of success. However, this subversion that is done within the first episode of this show is both minor and also incredibly important all at the same time. We are introduced to the character of Thomas first, leading us to believe that he is in fact the main character of the show, only for him to then be called out by his bigger brother Arthur, who talks to him in a rude and aggressive way, which leads us to believe that he might be the main character and he might be the one in charge. Only for us to later on throughout the show realise that in fact Tommy is in fact the leader. Now this level of subversion keeps the audience interested. They keep watching because they want to find out what exactly is going on in this situation. They want to know who's in charge, where's this whole plot going, why is Arthur so angry, what's the power to trick, who are these Chinese people, why doesn't Arthur like the Chinese, and these things they later delve into within the season. But in order to make sure that we keep watching, they introduce all of these topics to us at once. And speaking of that moves on to the final S, substance. Substance relates to the fact that there is always something going on in this show. Very rarely will you find an episode of Peaky Blinders that is just exposition, and if it does, there's always an element of tension to it. Like when characters confront each other in scenes, one-to-one, and they'll be talking about the plot and what's going to happen. But there's always an element of uneasiness, tension, because we don't know how these people get on. You can tell that whilst they appear on a surface level to be communicating well, there's an underlying current of sinister and aggression in every line that is delivered, especially when characters like Billy Kimber and Alfie Solomons communicate with Tommy Shelby. On top of this, substance also includes that there is always weight in what the characters are saying. There's never just flat dialogue. It's very important within the very first few seconds of the show, you get straight to the point. You don't dilly-dally. You don't try and stretch out the duration of the show. You just short, sharp, substance, context, move on. This is something that, again, is done exceptionally well in the very first scene of the very first episode of Peaky Blinders. We see a girl blow some red powder onto a horse, and we later uncover that that is because they wanted people to see that and then think the horse was magic, so they could bet on the horse and because the horse was going to win the race. And then we get more context on top of this. Why would Tommy care? Because he runs a bookmaking shop and he needs people to bet on the horse in order for him to make money. There are many great shows out there on TV, many great dramas, Line of Duty, Breaking Bad, Daredevil. All of these shows are exceptional, but none of them had an opener quite this good. Because you're always introduced to the main character within the very first few moments of the first episode, and you're left to develop your own opinions on the character. And whilst that is true for Tommy Shelby in the later seasons, from the very first moment we're introduced to him, we know exactly what other people think about him and what you should think about him as a result. This is probably why the show is so successful. You are gripped immediately into watching the entire episode. There's no dead space, there's no fat, you're subverted from what you originally expected, and there's always tension within every scene that exists in the show. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like for more content like this, subscribe so you never miss an upload on the channel, and goodbye.
Young Swift.